For people who say that this election's not going to affect them personally, could you please call in today and tell me how much your power bill has gone up? How much has it gone up? Gabe in Ohio, how much has your bill gone up?
At least 50% over the last 3 years here in Ohio. Taking care of a family of four, it's almost impossible with the cost of energy, the cost of groceries, the cost of gasoline.
I know.
It's skyrocketed.
Joan in Connecticut.
Our utility bill has gone up approximately $100 a month. But the worst part, this wonderful blue state of Connecticut, everybody is charged upwards of 17% of their total bill. And this is for people who can't or do not want to pay their bills, and also for the future investment in electric vehicles.
That is amazing. There's one solution for Connecticut, and that is move. Mark in Pennsylvania.
My electric bill went from $180 to about the last electric bill I paid was $380.
In Michigan. Hello, Jerry.
Everything has just gone straight to the roof. Electric bill went from about $100 a month back around 2021 or so up to about $200 now.
Everything has gone through the roof. It doesn't affect you? Really? This doesn't affect you at all? Of course it does. Hello, America. You know, I want to talk to you a little bit about the people who say this election doesn't really affect me. I can't make a change. I don't know enough about the issues. I don't get involved in all of that. You better, because what's coming is worse than what we have right now. And it is going to affect you. It's going to affect you deeply. If you look at what that woman in California, or I mean in Connecticut said, 17% added to her bill. Why? So she could pay for other people who couldn't afford or wouldn't pay their bill. That's redistribution of wealth. Did you vote for that? Is somebody else taking your wealth just because you need heat? This is a sorry state we find ourselves in, and it's hard to believe that this could be done intentionally, but honestly, if you wanted to truly cripple the United States of America for the long term, doing everything possible to destroy our energy supply would do the trick. America's incredible abundance of energy resources is what built this nation. We've had it so good for so long and so relatively cheap when it comes to energy that it was easy for us to take it for granted. It's easy not to treat energy as a top election issue, but we ignore it this time around at our own peril. Because there are powerful forces on the left, including Kamala Harris, who are hell-bent on destroying America's energy sources. I know that's hard to hear. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that. But if you pay attention, there's no other way to explain it. Destroying our energy independence, you do that and you destroy much of our freedom in the process. Now, that's not alarmist. It's been happening since day one of the Biden-Harris administration. And now you feel it every time you go to pay your electricity bill, or because fuel is used in trucking and also making fertilizers and everything else. You feel it every time you go to the grocery store. When it comes to government policy, perhaps nothing will affect your day-to-day life more than what the left wants to do with green energy. Now, in case you don't think this is a vital issue, 24 states now, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, have a 100% clean energy goal that will affect over half the population. Kamala Harris is a climate radical, although she can't talk about it now because, according to Pew and the Research Center, climate ranks near the bottom of priorities of the voters. But when has that stopped politicians from pursuing the bottom of your list? She can't risk offending any voters with the fact that her entire political career at the national level has been about the radical forefront of the zealous green transition movement. Last month, Reuters reported, and I quote, Several Harris aides describe her plan on controversial energy issue as one of, quote, strategic ambiguity. Strategic ambiguity. Wow. That's nice. That also could just be her campaign slogan. The bottom line is that Harris cannot risk open discussion of her real green policy positions or anything else, not with Pennsylvania and Ohio at stake. Instead, at the DNC, we got this soft attempt to rebrand her climate activism. Listen to this.
The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and live free from the pollution that fuels the climate crisis.
Okay. Who doesn't want that, except for the climate crisis bullcrap? Who doesn't want that? We all want that. So she's saying this in such a way that, makes people believe that, climate nuts like her are just freedom fighters. Got it. Trying to rebrand her climate authoritarianism, and that's what it is, as freedom is a joke. It's reverse psychology because Harris, Tim Walz, and the Democratic Party believe in ever more control and regulation of your daily life. Harris may be tight-lipped for now about her authoritarian climate plans for you, but several left-wing climate groups are speaking volumes for her with their $55 million campaign ad commitment. The campaign is being run by the League of Conservation Voters Victory Fund. This is a longtime climate activist group on the left that aggressively pushes green policies to end all fossil fuel use in America. Now, why would they give her $55 million to help her get elected if she's so against what they stand for? In recent years, the LCV has received millions of dollars from the 1630 Fund, one of the main dark groups for money in the Arabella Advisors Network that we have mentioned several episodes over the past couple of years. At the start of the Biden administration, LCV led an internal training session on climate communication strategies for political appointees from all climate-related agencies, including Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has also met multiple times with LCV leadership since 2021. And LCV's president, Gene Karpinski, has had multiple meetings at the White House during the Biden administration, including meeting with Biden's clean energy czar, John Podesta. The LCV is already plugged into the White House and the executive agencies. They know where Harris stands on the green agenda. They would not be committing $55 million in ads for Harris if they didn't know exactly what brand of climate dictator they were backing. They know her track record, and America needs to know it too. So let's do a quick review. When she was a senator, Harris was a proud original co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. This is the most authoritarian legislation in all of U.S. history. It would have completely banned all use of coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear power. All of it. The Green New Deal was so over-the-top ridiculous that it seemed like Marvel movie writers invented this alternative reality for America. And yet, Democrats, including Kamala Harris, were dead serious about it. It is designed to dismantle and reconstruct almost every aspect of our lives, including provisions to get rid of all airplanes, the combustion engine vehicles, and, of course, those nefarious farting cows. And while they're all at it, the deal would also provide economic security for all those who are unable or unwilling to work. Oh my gosh. Now, what about the cows who are unable to or unwilling to fart? Do they get a say in any of this? In 2019, when Harris first ran for president, she proposed her own $10 trillion comprehensive climate plan. That is double the entire U.S. federal budget last year. That's just one plan. I guess the idea was to build so many wind farms that it would blow all the world's cash towards, America, because that's the only way you could ever come up with such an insane amount of money. But her 10-year mobilization plan wanted to, quote, exceed the Paris Agreement climate goals, even more than breathing clean air and getting rid of all the energy sources that actually work. Harris is obsessed with climate equity and environmental justice. In 2020, she introduced the Climate Equity Act, which would have created yet another new government office called the Climate and Environmental Equity Office. Now, what did this proposed office do? Well, it would be a checkpoint that congressional bills would have to go through first. They'd have to inspect it for potential impact on, quote, communities that have experienced environmental injustice or are vulnerable to climate injustice. Wow. Every government agency would have to, quote, biannually publish a climate and environmental justice accountability agenda. When that legislative gem failed, Harris pressed on with her Environmental Justice for All Act, which tried to create a bunch of new rules, advisory bodies, and government programs, including grants, which is just a fun way of saying free cash handouts to my friends. But only for environmental justice communities and the friends there. And then, of course, once she became vice president, she cast the tie-breaking vote in favor of the Diet Green New Deal, which was called the Inflation Reduction Act. 3 weeks ago, Biden finally let it slip what everybody knew all along, that this had nothing to do with inflation and was just a massive climate change bill. Watch.
I'm proud to announce that my investments, the most significant climate change law ever. And by the way, it is a $369 billion bill. It's called we should have named it what it was, but at any rate.
Yeah, not the Inflation Reduction Act, huh? Who would have seen that coming? Notice he said, my investments. These are our investments, and I don't want you investing my money because I think you make bad investments. Harris recently doubled down on her support for this law, which she admits is the single largest climate investment in American history. They clearly have a different understanding of what the word investment means. Here's an example of the Biden-Harris investment at work.
Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? There's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right?
Right.
And it's part of our experience growing up.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a school? Do you like school buses? Yeah, I'm talking to you at home, sitting there on the couch watching it. Your phone in your hand, wherever you are on this magic thing you've got watching. Isn't it great? I love school buses. You might remember Harris's electric yellow school bus tour in 22. The White House plan carved out $5 billion to purchase 2,463 EV school buses. So far, out of the 2,400, a grand total of 60 have been bought at a cost of $370,000 per bus. That's 3 times the cost of a traditional diesel bus. 55 school districts have already said, okay, I don't want anything to do with this. Many because of the concerns over basic performance of the EV buses, which can lose 1/3 of their range when the temperature gets below freezing. Good thing we live in South America, huh? This is what Kamala Harris is all about. She is a radical climate activist plugged into the vast left-wing dark money network of green extremists. I'm going to take a quick break. Then I want to show you their agenda. It's already crippling U.S. electricity. And as a result, your pocketbook. All right, let me tell you about Rough Greens. You love your dog. Who doesn't? Who doesn't love their dog? I get my dog on a yellow school bus and I'm so happy. I know you love your dog as much as I love Uno, my dog. And you want to feed them the best. I mean, can I ask you, would you ever feed your baby as soon as they, had teeth? Would you feed your baby from birth on for 15 years, would you just feed them McDonald's? Of course you wouldn't. It wouldn't be healthy. Well, that's kind of what we're feeding. If we have kibble food, everything's been sterilized in it. All the good stuff is gone. That's why I want to talk to you about rough greens. It's not a dog food. It's a supplement developed by a naturopathic doctor. His name is Dennis Black. And you sprinkle it on the food, and it contains all the good stuff your dog needs for a healthier and happier life. Probiotics, antioxidants, all the vitamin and minerals. Brown food, remember, is dead food. You need the green stuff. So Rough Greens is going to send you a free trial sample of Rough Greens. You just go to roughgreens.com/Beck. You'll pay for the shipping, but the first bag is free. Just get free Rough Greens, a trial bag now at roughgreens.com/Beck or 833-GLEN33.
Prices are too high. Kamala Harris knows it, and she's doing something about it. She'll triple America's clean energy production, saving families $80 a month on energy bills.
Wow. You could save $80. I mean, your bill went up $100 to $300, maybe $400, but you could save now $80 every month. Wow, that's great. So, now wait, hang on. She's just planning this now? Because she's in the current administration, you know, the Clean Energy Administration, the one that keeps telling us they passed the most significant climate change law ever. You know, I thought the wind and the sunshine thing were free. So when do we see the $80 to help defray the maybe $200 extra you're paying every month? The best estimate is never. If the current green activist regime continues, you will lose so much money. Over the past year, U.S. electricity prices rose another 3.6%, which outpaced the inflation rate. In 2022, the price of electricity grew 10.7%, which was the highest year-over-year increase since the year 2000. Since Joe Biden took office, home electricity prices have increased around 20%, with Americans now paying over $5,000 more per year on utilities compared to what they paid before the Biden White House. Now, there was a CNET survey this summer found 78% of Americans are a little stressed over the rising home energy costs. We're going into the winter. Who's psyched for it? 32% having to borrow money or go on to payment plans to pay their energy bills. A third. Now, in California, which is the standard bearer state when it comes to all things green energy, electricity rates have necessarily gone up over 3 times faster than the national average since 2008. Last year, Californians owed over $2 billion in unpaid utility bills. Who's gonna pay that off? We will. No state has mandated the adoption of solar power more than California, yet its power bills just keep going up. In fact, they now have this weird problem of producing too much solar energy. During certain times of the year, there's an oversupply of solar power that overwhelms transmission lines in some areas of California. When that happens, the electricity just goes back into space. Already this year, the state wasted 2.6 million megawatt hours of electricity, which NBC News reported is enough to power all of the homes in San Francisco for a year. And by the way, have you tried doing any green energy conversions at your own home? I have. You don't want to see my bills. Oh, it's absolutely unreasonable. Solar panel technology has been around now for decades, yet the average cost of installing a solar panel system for your home is still $25,000. I wish. To retrofit your home appliances to comply with the new Biden and Harris efficiency standards, that's only going to cost you $9,000. Then there's another $16,000 to buy and install the electric heat pump that Biden and Harris want everybody to have and use. And then their Inflation Reduction Act law, it actually encourages people to convert to the heat pump, but that'll only shave $8,000 off the price. Oh, and by the way, even though the law was passed 2 years ago, those rebates still aren't available. but we super duper promise they will. Altogether, the Biden-Harris green mandate will add $31,000 to the cost of a new home. But what's that? I mean, that's no big deal, right? Now, they think they're earning their green merit badges by helping to save the planet, but all they're really doing is kicking regular Americans down the stairs. They're super, super pro-choice, except when it comes to green stuff. Then you must do what we say or you shall die. Here's the truth that you've never heard any left-winger admit. Over the past 15 years, the U.S. has lowered our emissions more than any other nation on the planet. But it didn't happen because of government climate change regulations. No, it's because of the free market development of our natural gas resources, which means, sorry, I'm going to have to use the F word here, and the left hates it, fracking. Fracking, all of that fracking of natural gas has allowed the U.S. to slowly move away from coal in making electricity. You see, coal is still part of the equation along with nuclear power. Oh, I got some news on that one too. It'll blow your mind. It now accounts for 43% of all electricity generated in the U.S. That means natural gas prices have a huge impact on the price of electricity. But guess who drastically reduced the leases for natural gas and oil exploration? Yeah. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round. Team Biden and Harris. In fact, when she ran for president the first time, Harris said, and I quote,
"There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking."
Yeah.
So, yeah, and starting...
Yeah.
And starting with what we can do on day one around public lands. Right?
Yes.
And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California.
Absolutely.
I have a history of working on this issue.
Now, she's changed her mind in the last 6 weeks. Well, actually, she didn't say that. One of her aides came out and said, no, you're not. What are you talking about? Fracking? I don't even... The reality is the administration she is part of has gone out of its way to throttle natural gas, and she's all for it. Usually when you take a resource that is high demand and you make it more scarce, it makes that resource more or less expensive, kids. Right, more expensive. Yet the Biden-Harris White House claims they're working hard to get your energy bills under control. Yes, their control. Natural gas, coal, and nuclear power are going to continue to be vital to our energy security because they provide the base load sources for electricity. They're what keeps all the lights on, kids, and the wind stops blowing, you know? Because if the wind stops blowing, then we don't have the electricity. We have to use coal to keep electricity on demand 24/7. You have to have something that actually works whenever you need it. So even though fusion energy looks promising, until that's a reality, we're still going to need some fossil fuels for a long, long time. And yet, incredibly, under the Biden-Harris policy, the Environmental Protection Agency is planning to retire 130 coal plants in 31 states over the next 5 years. Wait, that doesn't make any sense because electricity demand is growing. And do they think the 7 million illegals that they let in over the last 4 years don't need some electricity? The nation's ability to provide enough power is being shut down. Well, except for the elites. You know, they're going to have their nuclear power plants. I think Bill Gates wants to open up 3 Mile Island. It's completely safe now because he needs the energy for AI. You're not going to get any peasant. For the traditional power plants they allow to stay open, the EPA determined this year that by 2032, power plants must capture 90% of the carbon they produce. But current technology can barely capture 10% of carbon. But don't worry, it's a law. So the laws of the universe will have to bend the laws of Harris. It is suicide for our ability to generate electricity. And in the meantime, these shutdowns and restrictions only make your power bill continue to go up. You see, in the end, by 2030, you'll have nothing. You'll be bankrupt. But don't worry, you don't have to own anything. You can just rent it from people like Harris. Now, if all of that crippling by the Biden-Harris team isn't damaging enough, they're continuing to push solar and wind power like it's our only hope. Obi-Wan, wind power, it's our only hope. Even when these methods generate actual power of only 25 to 34% of the year. Biden is pushing for 30 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity, enough to power 10 million households, and they want that in place by 2030. But here's the problem. Offshore wind, not all it's cracked up to be, kills a lot of seagulls and whales. But the largest offshore wind project in the U.S. is in the Vineyard Wind 1 project. This $4 billion project was supposed to be completed by this summer, but in July, a turbine blade from one of its towers, it shattered in shards and polluted the beaches in Massachusetts, but they're picking it all up. There's some people out there with a metal detector right now. You know, the whole time Biden has been in office, he's been touting climate change as a giant American project to create tons of good-paying union jobs. So, which U.S. company and those good American union jobs have been created? Who's behind the $4 billion Vineyard Wind 1 project? Well, none here in America. This is a firm from Denmark, and they are a utility company in Denmark, and they have a utility company in Spain too. So, but GE is making some of the turbines, but it's not doing them a lot of good because they're losing money on offshore wind projects. So, it doesn't help GE. See, I always thought the point of all this was to help save the environment, but it turns out that wind turbines they don't really last forever. They're not made of recyclable material. So can you imagine one of those big blades? What happens if a dolphin swallows it accidentally? Well, don't worry. That's not going to happen because they take these big blades and they take them down, then they chop them up and bury them in giant landfills like in places like Iowa or Wyoming or South Dakota. It's great. And the New York Times, they love it. Here's what they said, quote, engineers expect more than 43 million tons of landfill waste that will be generated by turbine blades alone globally by 2050, which is only about 3 times as much as the total waste of New York City annually. Boy, this doesn't sound like a good deal. Let me show you Willie Phillips, chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, during his U.S. Senate testimony just last year.
I will begin with reliability because it is, and it must be, always job number one.
Job number one.
We face unprecedented challenges to the reliability of our nation's electric system.
Oh, yeah. Well, artificial intelligence, I mean, that's going to be, wow, you know, that's expected to require an 8% of all U.S. electricity by 2030. Yeah. Overall demand for electricity is expected to increase by 18% by 2030 and 38% by 2035. Yeah. In the past year, U.S. grid planners have almost doubled their 5-year load growth forecast. That was just in the last year. I think it's going to keep going up. Over the next 2 years, the U.S. would need to build the equivalent of 28 nuclear reactors just to keep up with the demand that we know we're going to need. The FERC chairman says we have unprecedented challenges to the reliability of our nation's electrical system. Really? Well, see, we're already really badly behind, yet Kamala Harris and other Democratic Party leaders are rushing to unplug the nation from power resources that work. There's no other way to describe that than sabotage. Back in a minute with what Kamala Harris and friends have in store for another essential utility used every day, your car. Next. So if you had the chance just to wave your hand like a magic wand and abortion would no longer be illegal, imagine all the lives you could save in that moment. But we don't live in that magical world. No, horses don't fly. Pigs don't have wings. It's weird. But the good news is You can save unborn lives by donating to Preborn, the Ministry of Preborn. They empower young expectant mothers in crisis to choose life. Preborn has rescued hundreds of thousands of babies' lives through an ultrasound. And when a woman is considering an abortion and she visits a preborn center, she gets to hear the baby's heartbeat and meet that precious child on an ultrasound. And 9 out of 10 times, it's a divine encounter. Majority of the time, she'll choose life for her baby. I'm really proud to be affiliated with this organization, not only to work to save lives, but succeeding in saving lives. We can't shut abortions down overnight, but we can work together to change the hearts and the minds of expecting moms by introducing them for the first time to that young life that's growing inside of them. And then helping save mom's life as well by being there for 2 years after the baby is born. Will you help? Help rescue a baby's life. To donate, dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/Glenn. So the climate engagement director for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign is a woman named Kamala Thorndike. She says she didn't want to have any children because of climate change. It's just too cruel to bring a child into this greenhouse hell that we call planet Earth. Yeah, apparently she's not alone in this. An Ipsos survey this year finds 9% of American adults ages 18 to 35, they are delaying choosing not to have children because they're worried about climate change. Other Americans are also apparently suffering from so-called climate grief. For help, they're running to, and I'm not making this up, eco-chaplains. Hi, I'm the chaplain for the environment. Here's how NPR described the support group meeting in Oregon led by an eco-chaplain. Quote, participants sipped coffee, nibbled homemade raisin oatmeal cookies, passed around a box of Kleenex, and examined a color wheel in which the names of hues were replaced by emotions: fear, anger, loneliness, and anxiety. Do you know how dead we are if anybody tries to come in and invade us? We're all dead. We're all dead. You're eating oatmeal cookies with raisins and you're looking at a color wheel because you're anxious about the climate. We're so dead. The thing about most extreme climate nuts is that they want you to be as miserable as they are. Like environmentalist Stan Cox, who recently wrote a New York Times op-ed titled, "I swore off air conditioning, and you can too." No, Stan, no. Maybe I could, but I'm not even going to try. Stan has apparently never been to Texas in August or October or really maybe April. Really pretty much any time. He doesn't own a dishwasher because they put out too much heat and humidity. He keeps his refrigerator just set under 40 degrees. He dries his own laundry on a clothesline outside instead of using air conditioning. He also says when it gets too hot, we just lightly spray water on our arms, legs, and faces. And the water helps dissipate a lot of heat. A quick cold shower, a little time spent with that all-American favorite, the lawn sprinkler, can also bring relief. Okay, Ozzy and Harriet, no. Again, nada. Not going to do it. Green zealots like Stan would like to cancel all the modern inventions that make life better. Take us back to maybe, I don't know, the late 1800s when things were grand. As an American, I defend Stan's freedom to be an idiot, walk around misting himself with a spray bottle all day and hanging his laundry outside. You want somebody to see your underpants? Go ahead. But the problem is the green zealots don't extend the same freedom to me to use air conditioning or a dishwasher. You see, we all have to suffer. No. Few inventions have improved life or changed the world more than air conditioning and the automobile. Now, you look at the automobile, that's why they have to wreck that one too, you know. Kamala Harris ran for president in 2020 on her platform that included a mandate that 50% of all new cars be zero emission by 2030, and that car makers phase out gasoline-powered engines completely by 2035. You see everybody just running to get those electric cars right now? Yeah, they love it. Oh, the kids love them these days. In a shocking development, her current campaign won't say if she holds that position, which she, absolutely, definitely does. The Inflation Reduction Act? Oh, man. Now, that was a bill that really reduced inflation, huh? It had an insane amount of money in it, $12 billion in grants and loans to help automakers convert factories to build electric vehicles, or EVs. For example, one company was awarded, I think, a couple of government grants, $585 million to convert 2 plants in Illinois and in Indiana to make EVs. Now, this is a European-based parent company of Jeep and Dodge and Ram and Chrysler. But now, well, they're just going to have to lay off 2,000 people at a factory in Michigan. $585 million in free government money, and you still have to lay off 2,000 people. I'm not sure what I'm missing here, other than nobody wants those stinking cars. Back in 2022, the CEO said, and I quote, "What is clear is that electrification is a technology chosen by politicians and not by the industry." Well, it's a Frenchman that actually makes some sense, huh? He's exactly right about that, but I guess he figures as long as these politicians are dumb enough to hand automakers billions of dollars, he'll take it all the way to the bank laughing. This is one of the many reasons Americans should actually care about waste in government spending, because in the case of EVs, it's funding a failing enterprise. This is what happens when government tries to invest or coerce the free market forces. The interference never goes well. According to the Wall Street Journal, automakers are losing money on every single EV they sell. What? Ford has already lost billions of dollars on EVs, recently announced plans to change their EV strategy. Volvo said it's tossing its plan to have an all-electric fleet by 2030. Nope, it's out. GM delaying its plans for a new Buick EV and an electric truck factory. Mercedes-Benz pushed back its EV goal by 5 years, and this year the Hertz rental car company started selling off 20,000 EVs from its fleet to replace them with gasoline cars. The fact is, Americans don't want the EVs, and we didn't elect you to tell us what kind of car we could have. Since 2020, EV sales have increased, but as the percentage of all vehicles sold in the U.S., they peaked at around 11% last year. Now, according to Gallup polling, just 9% of Americans are actually seriously considering buying an EV. 35% might consider one in the future. 48% say, no. According to the Pew Research, 59% of Americans oppose phasing out gasoline vehicles. And EVs are not exactly, a high demand product. Some would say for a good reason. They're still way too expensive for the average Americans. The average EV price is over $56,000 compared to $48,000 for a new gas-powered vehicle. And those Biden-Harris tax incentives for EVs, they're now only available for 12 specific models. There was a report by the International Council on Clean Transportation, and it estimates, you ready? EVs with a 400-mile range could reach price parity with gas cars somewhere between 2029 and 2023. Sorry, 2029 and 2033. That's, wow. Meanwhile, insurance for EVs is twice as much as a regular car. See, it just keeps getting better because EV batteries are so giant and heavy. They cause extra wear on the tires, which can be up to $400 per tire. Oh, and by the way, I hope you never, ever, 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 ever need to replace your EV's battery, because those run somewhere between $7,000 and $30,000. Then there's the whole range and charging time issue. The medium EV range, just 200 miles. But that's dependent on weather, you know. An hour of regular charging will only get you an additional 10 to 20 miles of range. But you can access the so-called fast charger. If you do that, you can get, you know, another 80 to 120 miles of range. Still take you about 30 minutes of charging, but I mean, who doesn't have that kind of time? After all, AI is going to be taking all of our jobs anyway. Why don't we just spend our time charging up our car? Never mind all the expense and inconvenience. The government is forcing EVs anyway, because that's what you would expect the government to do. The Biden-Harris administration, through the EPA, has finalized yet more emission rules to force automakers to increase their share of EVs that they produce. This White House wants 2/3 of new cars sold to be gasoline-free by 2032. Oh. As the Wall Street Journal has just put it, make no mistake, this is a coerced phase-out of gas-powered cars. That's weird. Do you remember voting for that? Because I don't remember it either. I'll be right back with the environmental lawfare coming soon to a courtroom near you. So we're all getting older now. I don't know about you, but I feel the aches and pains. Some of those years left a mark, you know what I mean? I used to suffer from ungodly pain in my hands. I had it pretty much all the time. And you'll notice I said used to because I started taking Relief Factor. I tried everything to get out of pain. I mean, I went to every doctor. And my wife says, why don't you try Relief Factor? I'm like, that's not going to work. Why? That's 100% drug-free. This is the days that I believed in pharmaceuticals. But that just masks the pain for a while. This will help your body eliminate pain for good. It uses a unique formula of natural ingredients that support your body's response to inflammation. Over 1 million people have tried Relief Factor. 70% of them have gone on to order more. So give Relief Factor a try with their 3-week quick start. It's $19.95, less than $1 a day. Try it. Turn back the clock on pain. Visit relieffactor.com, 1-800-4-RELIEF. All right. There's a recent study that just came out. It was published in the Science Journal. It examined 1,500 climate change policies that have been enacted in 41 countries over the last 25 years. I mean, it's great. Now, the analysis found that only 63 policies led to large enough emissions reduction to do any good. But look, that means that just under 96% of the governmental climate change policies around the world for the last 25 years have been, ineffective. But only 96% of them. Even one of the lead researchers on the study claimed, quote, we have a lot of policies out there that haven't led to a large emissions reduction, and more policies don't necessarily equate to better outcomes. Yeah. And yet the militant left-wing climate troopers just march on, continuing to adapt their tactics to accomplish their agenda. Now, when Kamala Harris was the California Attorney General, she sued oil and gas companies for pollution. Amen, sister. You go. She also initiated an investigation into ExxonMobil over whether the company had misled the public about the risks of climate change. That investigation didn't lead to anything because climate change isn't real. But in another interview with Mother Jones, when Harris ran for president in 2019, she promised that if she was elected president, she would use the Department of Justice and the EPA to go after oil companies. She also said she would choose her own cabinet members in part based on their commitment to fighting climate change. Wow. She's a superhero. She said, quote, the president of the United States gets to appoint her cabinet. Really? And for me, the issue of climate crisis relates to every aspect of what we do. Right, because fossil fuels are in almost everything we do and have. The kind of environmental lawfare that Harris is willing to use the DOJ for is a growing trend on the left. You see, now activists are striving to cripple the energy sector through the legal system. An organization called Our Children's Trust is trying to copy the Greta Thunberg playbook by, I guess, filing climate lawsuits on behalf of kids. Oh, God. The group has filed lawsuits in all 50 states. In 2022, Our Children's Trust sued Hawaii's Department of Transportation for using fossil fuels, arguing it violates the constitutional right of their kids' clients to a clean and healthy environment. Yeah, but don't worry, you can still kill those kids, even when they come outside the womb. That's, they don't have that right. In June, Hawaii settled with plaintiffs agreeing to decarbonize its transportation system within 20 years. They're gonna build more bicycle lanes and spend $40 million on EV chargers, which is going to be, As usual, we can look to Europe for clues about where we're headed. This year, Belgium's parliament codified the crime of ecocide, defined as, quote, deliberately committing an unlawful act causing serious, widespread, and long-term damage to the environment. Wow. I know that's been high on my priority list. Earlier this month, ecocide was formally introduced for consideration as a crime by member states at the International Criminal Court. Now, this would codify it as an international crime, along with genocide and war crimes, which they don't ever really prosecute, but I'll bet you they prosecute this one, People like you and me are involved especially. Americans must wake up, understand the massive scope of the green agenda. This is relentless, unbelievably well-funded, and attacking American energy on multiple fronts. Kamala Harris's track record is clear. She's always been a crusader for the idea that climate change is the ultimate existential crisis. But the radical green agenda keeps advancing as it has under Biden. If that happens, the true existential crisis is American freedom, because it will be gone. I just have to tuck this one in here. You know how bad nuclear power is, right? It's going to kill us all. Nuclear power, you can't have nuclear power. Unless the people who are building AI discover that they need 3,000% more electrical power by 2030. So now they're talking about reopening 3 Mile Island. Oh, Bill Gates gets to open it up. It'll be for him and his server farms for AI. And then they're talking about building all kinds of new nuclear power plants for, the big guys for AI, which is great. We'll have wind power, but they'll have that nuclear power, which I thought was really super dangerous. From Dallas, good night, America.